Second line, Tanar Rabbanan. Zayin Amud Aleph. Tanar Rabbanan. Be'echad b'Nisan. The Brisa says, on the first day of Nisan, Rosh HaShana l'chadashim. It's the first of the. It's the beginning of the year for the months. Uli Iburin, and for making an Ibur Chodesh, adding an extra month to the year, like we add 2 Adars, we add a second Adar. Ula Trumas Shkalim, and also to start using the money from the new collection for the Karbanos. In the base of English, they made a collection once a year, right, like we know. And they started using that money for the new year, starting in Nisan, for the Karbanos starting in Nisan. Now, these are things that we did not mention in our Mishnah. We're going to go through each one to show the source in the Gemara, and we're going to explain why our Tan of our Mishnah didn't mention these. There's one more. V'yesh Aimrim in this brayso. V'yesh Aimrim after schirus batim. Also for renting a house, which means that if somebody rents a house to somebody for a year or for this year, if somebody says I'm renting you this house for this year, so Rashi says even if it's an Adar, even if it's the first day of Adar, by the time the first day of Nisan comes, his term is up because it's the end of the year. The new year for this year for rentals is the beginning of Nisan. Okay, so now let's go through all the things mentioned in this brayso. How do we know that Rosh HaShana for months, the beginning of the year for the months, is Nisan, Minalon, the Chsiv, because it says in the pasuk, HaChodesh hazeh lochem, Rosh Chadashim. This month is Rosh Chadashim, the beginning of all the months. Rishon hu lochem l'chodshi Hashana. It's the first one for the months of the year. Okay, but we still don't know that month in the Torah is talking about Nisan. It just says this one. Okay, then it says, Dabru al kol adas Yisrael, Leimar, be'asr l'chodesh hazeh, speak to all Jewish people, that on the 10th of this day, v'yikchu lahem ish seh l'beis avos, everybody should take a sheep, right? Seh l'bayis, v'hoya lachem l'mishmeres, ad arba asr yom, it should be till the 14th day, l'chodesh hazeh, v'shachatu oisi, and then you should shecht it. So it's referring to the Karban Pesach. Okay, so you know now that the first month of the year and the Karban Pesach are in the same month. But you still don't know that that's Nisan. The Chsiv, it says in the pasuk, Shamar es chodesh ha'aviv. With regard, in the same parsha, it says Shamar es chodesh ha'aviv. So the Karban Pesach has to be brought in the chodesh ha'aviv. Which one is the chodesh ha'aviv? Eizehu chodesh sheyesh by aviv. Aviv means that the produce begins to ripen. So which month is that? Have you Omer Zen Nisan? That's Nisan, because that's when the produce begins to ripen. The Kari Le Rishon, and the Torah called it Rishon. So we see now that Nisan is the beginning of the year for the months. It's the first month, Rishon it's called. And it's important to know, because anytime the Torah mentions, many times in the Torah mentions just the number of the month, like B'chodesh HaShlishi, B'chodesh HaShvi. So then if we know Nisan is number 1, we know what each number is. The Gemara asks, maybe Aviv, the month that the produce ripens, is Iyar, because it's also towards the beginning of the season. The Gemara answers, Ba'ina Aviv, Veleka. It's not Aviv. And Rashi explains that even though some of the produce is still beginning to ripen, some certain produce begins to ripen in Iyar, it's not considered the produce which begins to ripen. It's like Rashi calls it afil. It's not the bechir, which the word aviv translates as the bechir, the ones that are beginning to ripen. It's the afil. It's the ones. It's like the later batch, which that's not what aviv means. So, in fact, the Gemara of Ema Adar, maybe Adar, because the way Rashi explains Adar, some produce ripens even quicker. So maybe it's Adar. Maybe that's the month which the produce begins to ripen. The Gemara says, Ba'ina roiv aviv veleka. You need the month which most produce begins to ripen, and it isn't that. So the Gemara asks, Midi roiv aviv ksiv? Does it say anywhere that you need roiv? It doesn't say. It just says aviv, chodesh aviv. It doesn't say roiv. Okay, so the Gemara leaves that for now. Ella Amar Rav Chisda. So Rav Chisda has a new explanation or a new source to show us that Nisan is the first month of the year. It says in the pasuk, Ach b'chamisha asar yom l'chodesh hashvi, on the 15th day of the 7th month, ba'as bechem es tvuas haaretz, when you're gathering in the tvuas haaretz, the produce, and you're gathering it in because it's going to be, the rainy season is about to begin, so everything was set out the whole summer to dry, and now you're bringing it inside. What's that? The 7th month. Ezehu chodesh yesh b'asifa. Which month do you gather in the produce? Heavy Aimer, is that Tishrei? That's Tishrei, because it's before the winter starts. We go Kari Le Shvi, and we called it the 7th month. So it must be that the first month is Nisan. So that's the proof. In fact, the Gemara of Eimamar Cheshvan, maybe it's Cheshvan. Umay Shvi, and when it called it the 7th month, it means Shvi Le'iyar. Maybe the month of gathering is the month of Cheshvan, and it's called 7 because it's 7 to Iyar. Iyar is number 1. So again, we don't have a proof that Nisan is number 1. The Gemara says, Ba'ina Osif Veleka. Cheshvan is not the month which you do the gathering. It's not the month of gathering. So therefore, it has to be Tishrei, not Cheshvan. The Ema Elul, maybe some certain things you start putting away ready in Elul. So that's that would be the month of the gathering. Umay Shvi La'adar, and the beginning of the year for months is Adar. But Roiv Asif Faleka. The Gemara answers again, you need to have the month where most things are gathered. And Adar isn't that. In fact, the Gemara, Midi Roiv Asif Ksiv, does it say anywhere that you need Roiv Asif? It just says. It just says in the pasuk, but As Bechem Es Tvu Asar. It doesn't say Roiv. Ela Amar Ravina. So Ravina says another source, or we're going to see a whole bunch. Ravina says, Davar Zem Mitoyres Moshe Rabbeinu Lo Lamadnu. There's no direct source in the Torah for it, that Nisan is the first of the months. But Midivrei Kabbalah Lamadnu. We learn it out from Divrei Kabbalah. From the Ksuvim, we'll see in a minute, a bunch of psukim which show us the number of the months. It says in the pasuk, this first pasuk we'll see is from Zechariah, B'yoim Esrim V'arba, on the 24th day, La'ashtei Asar Chodesh, Hu Chodesh Shvat. It says it straight out. It calls it the month of Shvat. It's the 11th month, the 24th of the 11th month, which is Shvat. So if Shvat is the 11th month, Adar is the 12th month, Nisan has to be the first month.
It's strange that twice now the Gemara has not addressed the issue of Rov. They just kind of let it fly.
Right. Well, it was a strong enough question that we didn't have an answer for it. Yeah. Okay. Rabbi Bar Ula Amar Mehacha. Rabbi Bar Ula says the source is from a different pasuk in Divrei Kabbalah, not in the Torah, but it's in. We'll see in Megillus Esther. Vatilokach Esther el Hamelech Achashverosh el Beis Malchusai. Esther was taken to the king's palace. When b'chodesh ha'asiri, in the 10th month, hu chodesh Teves. So there you go. Nisan is number 1. If Teves is 10, Nisan is 1. Rav Kahana Amar Mehacha. Rav Kahana says it from here. But Arba l'chodesh, on the 4th of the month, Hachi, the 9th month, which is Kislev. So once again, you have if Kislev is 9, Nisan is 1. Rav Acha Bar Yaakov Amar Mehacha. Rav Acha Bar Yaakov says from here, a different pasuk, also in Esther, I believe. Yeah, in Megillus Esther. Vayikaru Seifrei HaMelech be'eis hahi b'chodesh hashlishi, in the 3rd month, hu chodesh Sivan. So again, Nisan is number 1. Rav Ashi Amar Mehacha. Rav Ashi says from here, Hipil Pur, Haman drew lots, hu hagoyro lefnei Haman, miyoim leyoim, umechodesh lechodesh, shneim asar, hu chodesh Adar, the 12th month is Adar. So very, very clear. And now the Gemara says, Ibai Seiman, if you want, you can say Mehacha from here. Same pasuk. It says in that pasuk, B'chodesh harishon hu chodesh Nisan. In the first month, which is Nisan. So, for the Gemara, those questions. V'kulu my time. Why didn't everybody say from this month? My time alayamri mehai. Why didn't everybody say from Nisan? It's so straightforward. It says b'chodesh harishon hu chodesh Nisan. Why do you have to go figure it out from a different month? Just say this one. So the Gemara answers, this pasuk is said in the Megillah, in Megillus Esther. Dilmo my rishon. You may think when it says the first month, my rishon lemilsei. It's the first month of the story. The story of the Megillah, it began, maybe you may think that it was the first month where the story began. So you won't know that it's the first month of the year. But when we call other months with the numbers, then we know from those sources that Nisan is the first month. So that's okay. So that's why I guess only the Ibai Seima. My Rishon Lemilse Vitana Didan. Oh, so now the question is, why didn't our Mishnah in the beginning of Rosh HaShana say, when it mentioned all the Rosh HaShanahs, why didn't we mention this one for the beginning of the months? Rosh HaShanah l'chadashim. Gemara says, Tana Didan b'shanim kamayri. We're talking about year, things that are the beginning of the year for a new year. B'chadashim like kamayri. We're not talking about months. We're talking about years. So therefore, we didn't mention it.
All these things that we have are so much later. Esther, everything. We can't go back to a Qur'an, and we can't go back to a pasuk in the Torah that's going to substantiate it. We have to wait to years and years.
Ravina says, "Mitayras Moshe Rabbeinu lo lamadnu, midivrei Kabbalah lamadnu." We tried from psukim of the Torah, but we had strong questions on it. So
it's weak to have to wait till all the way to the last part, which is Esther, right? To come out with.
It's still part of Tanakh. It's a source nonetheless. Uli Iburin. So the Brisa said Uli Iburin that Nisan is also the beginning of the year for Iburin. What did that mean? So simply speaking, it means that they're Ma'abra the Chodesh. You would assume it means that you're Ma'abra the Chodesh in Nisan. That means they sit. The Bezdin convenes in Nisan, and they decide, okay, this year is going to be a 13-month year, or not. The Gemara says, "Iburin mi Nisan meninan." Do they decide in Nisan for the Iburin to add a month to make it a Ibriyar? ve-chatima, we learned in a Brisa, ein ma'avrin hashana l'fnei Rosh HaShana. You can't make an Ibur Shana before Rosh HaShana. Nisan is way before Rosh HaShana, obviously. V'im ivruha ena me'uberes. And if they decide before Rosh HaShana that it's going to be a Shana me'uberes, it doesn't work because it's too far off. People are going to forget. If it's a situation of d'chak, you have no other choice. In other words, maybe because Bezdin can't convene later on in the year for whatever reason, the earliest possible time you could do it is ma'aber naisa achar Rosh Hashanah miyad. Immediately after Rosh Hashanah is the earliest time that it could take effect. If Bezdin announces that it's going to be a Ibur Shana, a Shana Muberes. But Afal Pikein, says the Brisa, Ein ma'aber ela adar. The only month that you actually are ma'aber, that you add is adar. Okay, so how could you say that Nisan they decide already the Ibur Shana if you can't do it till the earliest possible time is after Rosh Hashanah in Tishrei? Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, my Iburin. What does it mean when we said that it's the Rosh Hashanah for Iburin? Hafsakas Iburin. It means that's at that point Nisan. Once Nisan begins, it's too late to go make a Shana Me'uberes on the previous year. Because once Nisan starts, it starts a new year for the count of the months. You can't now go add on a month to last year's Cheshbon. The Gemara will explain the Tanan, like we see in the Mishnah. Hein He'idu. We changed on the side to Haim, or Rashi's gear says Haim He'idu. Same thing, but Rashi says it's Rabbi Yeshua and Rav Papayas. It's a Gemara in Sanhedrin. They said, Shema Abrin Hashana Kol Adar. Rav Yeshua and Rav Papayas, they said that you were able to be Ma'abr, you could still make it into Hashana Me'uberes all Adar long. Why did they have to say that? Shehayu Oimim, because the Chamim were saying at that time, I guess, that Ad HaPurim, only till Purim you can make a Hashana Me'uberes. So in Adar, the Bezdin could still decide that it's going to be another Adar, but only until Purim. Rav Yeshua and Rav Papaya said you could do it all Adar long. But after that, once Nisan starts, that's considered a new year already. That's what this Brisa means, that it's a new year for Ibur Shana. And now it's too late. You can't go back. Once they were Makadosh the Chodesh for Nisan, you can't say, okay, wait, no, really it's still Adar. It's too late. But what's this opinion that says only till Purim? What's the reason for it? The Gemara says, my taima, demand Omar Ad HaPurim. What is the reason for the opinion that says that you could only make it a Shana Me'uberes until Purim, till the 14th? Since we learn, it's a Gemara in Megillah, I believe, Psachim and Megillah and Sanhedrin. Okay, since we learn in the Gemara that you start learning about the halachas of Pesach 30 days before the Chag, before Pesach, what's going to happen is the Chachamim are going to get up and start darshaning on the 15th day of Adar. They're going to say, okay, it's 30 days before Pesach. You start teaching on the halachas of chametz and everything, and then so everybody's going to know, okay, in 30 days is Pesach. Comes 30 days later, it's not Pesach. We'll say, okay, no, pushed off till next month. So it's going to be it's going to become like a joke. People are going to be mezalzel and chametz is a very serious Isser in the Torah. So therefore, we're worried that Asil Zolzuli b'chametz. Therefore, until Purim, you can make it an Ibur Shana. You can still add another Adar, but after Purim, once you start discussing the halachas of Pesach, it's too late. That's what that opinion held. V'idach, what about Rav Yeshua and Rav Papayas that said they were made that they used to do it all Adar long? What does the other opinion hold? Meida Yediyah, people know the Hashta Ma'abarta b'chushbin Talia Milsa. The reason why the Chachamim push off Adar, make an extra Adar, is because it's totally in a Cheshbon, and they only were able to come to the conclusion of the Cheshbon now. So people know that it's totally in a Cheshbon, and therefore they're not worried. They're not going to be mezalzel and chametz. Okay, v'savri chushbinahu desalik chushbina talia milsa v'savri chushbinahu deloy salik l'hu l'rabanan ad ha'idna. The Chachamim didn't come to the Cheshbon till now. The Gemara once again asks, V'tana didan, what about the Tana of our Mishnah? Why didn't our Mishnah mention Iburin as one of the Rosh Hashanahs for Nisan? That Nisan is Rosh Hashanah for Iburin, like we just mentioned here in this Praisa. The Gemara answers, B'haschala kamairi, b'hafsaka loy kamairi. Like we explained, that Nisan is Rosh Hashanah for Iburin, that's the end. It's the cutoff, right? Thank you. That's the cutoff. You cannot be ma'aver the Chodesh anymore at this point. But for our Mishnah was only talking about starting things, not ending things. Okay, the next thing in the Brayso was Trumas Shkolim. Trumas Shkolim, we said, was the collection of the yearly collection for the Karbanos. So you started using the new batch of money, the new collection, in Nisan. Minolan, the Gemara asks, Minolan, how do you know? What's the source? Amar Rav Yoshia, Amar Kroa, Pasuk says, Zois oilas chodesh b'chodshai, l'chodshei hashana. So the Pasuk says the word chodesh many times. Oilas chodesh b'chodshai, l'chodshei hashana. Amra Torah, we darshan that this Pasuk is teaching us, Chadesh v'havei carbon mitruma chadasha. Renew and bring the carbon from the new collection. So how do I know this is in Nisan? The Gamri Shana mi Nisan. We make a Gzeira Shava. Shana. It says Shana. It says in this pasuk Zois Eilash Chodesh. This is the new month for the Chadesh v'Havei. This is the time that you use the new money for the Karbanos. L'Chodshei Hashana. It says Chodshei Hashana. It says the word Shana, the year. And we also say in the pasuk, a different pasuk, it says Rishon Hu Lachem L'Chodshei Hashana. In reference to Nisan, we say Rishon Hu Lachem L'Chodshei Hashana. Again, we call it the Chodshei Hashana. So we compare the word Shana to Shana. So it's Nisan. V'ligmar Shana Shana mi Tishrei. Why don't we say Shana Shana mi Tishrei? Because it says the word Shana with regard to Tishrei as well. Where? The Chesiv, it says in the pasuk, Mereishis Hashana, Arach Shana. It says Mereishis Hashana, which is Tishrei. Gemara answers, when we have a choice where to learn from, Danin Shana sheyesh ima chadashim, mishana sheyesh ima chadashim. Ve'ein danin Shana sheyesh ima chadashim, mishana she'ein ima chadashim. If in one place it says Chodshei Hashana, Shana with Chodesh, we're not going to learn it from a different source where it says just Shana without Chodesh, where we have an option to learn from Nisan, which says Chodesh and Shana in the same pasuk. So that's how we know that it's Nisan. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, about this topic of using the new collection. Karbanos tzibur haboin be'echad b'Nisan. All the Karbanos tzibur, the public offerings that we bring starting in the first of Nisan, mitzvah lahavi min hachadash. It's the mitzvah to bring from the new money. Ve'im havi min hayashan. If you brought it from the old money, yatza. You still fulfilled the mitzvah. However, ela shechiser mitzvah, you're missing out on that mitzvah. There's a mitzvah to bring from the new collection. Tanya nami hachi. We even have a brisa which backs up Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel's halacha. It says in the brisa, Tanya nami hachi, karbanos tzibur haboin be'echad b'Nisan, mitzvah lahavi min hachadash. It's a mitzvah to bring it from the new collection. Ve'im havi min hayashan. If you're bringing it from the old one, yatza ela shechiser mitzvah. Your yatza, just you're missing the mitzvah. And this brisa also says, "V'yachid shehisnadav mishaloi ksherin." A yachid, an individual which is misnadav, he donates his animal for the use of the carbon tzibur. It's kosher. It's kosher. Ubilvad sheyimsirem l'tzibur, as long as he gives it over to the tzibur. So the Gemara says, Pshita, obviously, if you're giving it for a carbon tzibur, of course you have to give it over to the tzibur. What is this brisa teaching us? Says the Gemara, Ma'udetei malecho shema loy Yimsirem l'tzibur yafe yafe. Maybe I would think that perhaps this person that donates it is giving it over to the tzibur to use as a carbon tzibur, but he doesn't give it over yafe yafe, like totally. He still he thinks it's his. And he'll go tell the Beis HaMikdash what to do with it and how to do it. The tzibur yafe yafe, you would think it's not kosher. Kamash malan, that it is kosher if you give it over. So the Gemara says now v'tana didan. What about our Tana of our Mishnah? Didn't include this as Trumas Shkolim as one of the Rosh Hashanahs for Nisan. Why not? Kivan the Katani imhavi yatza loy psika lei. Since we said that it's a mitzvah to bring from the new collection, but if you brought it from the old collection, you're still yaitza, so it's not such a clear cut. It's not so clear cut, so therefore we didn't include it as one of the Rosh Hashanahs in our Mishnah. So that's why our Mishnah left it out. So to Gemara weiter. This brisa ended the brisa also added one more. V'yesh oimrim. Some say afus chirus batim. Some say that the Nisan is also the Rosh Hashanah. It's also the beginning of the year for rentals, for renting out a house. If somebody says to somebody else, "I'll rent you the house for this year," at any time during the year, that year is up in Nisan. It starts again in Nisan. That's year 2 already. So, Tan Rabbanan. We learned in a brisa. Hamasker bayis l'chaveira. If somebody rents a house to his friend, l'shana, for a year, minus shnei masar chodesh miyayim liyayim. You count 12 months to the date. So whatever date it was, the contract is up a year later on that same date. V'im omar l'shana zu. But if you said, I'm renting it to you for this year, even if you didn't start the contract, didn't start the lease until the 1st of Adar, as soon as you get to the 1st of Nisan, which is only 1 month later, also Leishana. It already counts as a year. The year's up. And even according to the Man Amar that holds 1 day of a year is considered a year, like we had earlier on with regard to the Shtarais, right? That if a new king starts even 1 day at the end of the year, it's considered the next day, Nisan is already considered year 2 to his rule. So even according to the Man Amar that says Yom Echad B'Shana Chashav Shana Shani Hacha, with regard to rentals, it wouldn't apply. 1 day is not enough to be considered a year. It's only 1 month is the minimum. A person is not going to go through the effort of making a rental, of going through a contract, making a rental for less than 30 days. Okay, so that's how so we're saying it's Nisan, ve'ema Tishrei, but let's say it's Tishrei. We don't have a source to say that it's Nisan. We just explained how it works. That the year's up in Nisan, even 1 month, even if it's just 30 days. But ve'ema Tishrei, maybe it's Tishrei that it starts the new year for rentals. So the Gemara answers, Stam ki agar inish beisa l'kulu liyamais hageshamim agar. When a person rents his house out, the norm is that he does it for all of the winter. You're not going to kick a guy out before the winter. So if a guy starts his rental on the first day of Elul, come the beginning of Tishrei, you can say, okay, the rental's up. So now he has to go find the new place. He's kicked out of his house for the winter. That's not, so it's not the norm. It's normal for a person to rent the house for the whole winter. V'tanakama, the brisa, v'tana didan. This was only a yesh aimer in the brisa. So what about the other tana in the brisa and the tana of our Mishnah? Both did not mention this as one of the Rosh Hashanahs for rentals, for renting a home. Why didn't they? B'nisa nami mishkach shchiach kitri. Because they held that sometimes it's also the clouds gather in Nisan as well, and it could rain in Nisan too. So it's not so clear cut, and therefore a person won't kick a guy out in Nisan either. So again, it's not so clear cut. So therefore we didn't mention it in our Mishnah, and also the original Tana of this brisa didn't count it as one of the Rosh Hashanahs. Look at the Gemara weiter. This now we're going back to our Mishnah. Until now we were discussing this brisa that we mentioned in the beginning of the DAF, and now we're going back to our Mishnah. The Mishnah said the first Rosh Hashanah was Nisan for Menachem and for Regalim, right? The next Rosh Hashanah we said in our Mishnah, we said Echad be'Elul. The first day of Elul, Rosh Hashanah l'Maiser Behema. That's the year where the count starts again for Maiser Behema, because you could only give Maiser Behema from what was from 10th of your animals in each year for that year. You can't give from one year on to the next year. So the first of Elul, the Mishnah says, starts the count again. Whatever's born in this year, you have to give for Meiser. But, okay? And whatever was born before Rosh Chodesh Elul goes into the count for last year. The Gemara says, Mani, who is this? Who's the author? Who's the Tana of this Mishnah? The Gemara says, Reb Meir. It's Reb Meir. Changes it to the Tanan. Reb Meir Aimer, because we have a Mishnah which says clearly, Reb Meir Aimer, Reb Meir says, Be'echad be'Elul, Rosh Hashanah l'Maiser Behema. Very clear. Reb Meir says that on the first of Elul, it's Rosh Hashanah, it's the beginning of the year for Maiser Behema. Ula Regalim. Oh, no, sorry. That's the Gemara continuing. So the Gemara says, Ula Regalim Mani. When we said that Nisan is the Rosh Hashanah for Regalim, we explained a few daf ago that who was that? That's Rav Shimon. Mani Rav Shimon, right? Because we said that Rosh Hashanah l'Regalim means for Baal Ta'acher. For the Avera of Baal Ta'acher, of delaying one's promise to the Beis HaMikdash, and it's going according to Rav Shimon, who says you have to have the 3 Regalim in order, beginning with Pesach. So Nisan is the Rosh Hashanah l'Regalim according to Rav Shimon only. So if the Rosh Hashanah for Regalim was in the Rav Shimon, Ema Seifa, look at the next case, the next line of the Mishnah. It says, Rabbi Lazar for Rav Shimon Aimrim. Rabbi Lazar and Rav Shimon argue on this Tana, which says that the first of the year for Meiser Behema is Rosh Chodesh Elul, is the first of Elul. The next line it says, Rabbi Lazar Rav Shimon Aimrim be'echad b'Tishrei. So Reisha v'Seifa Rav Shimon. The Rosh Hashanah for Regalim is Rav Shimon. And Rosh Hashanah, the next line of the Mishnah we say it's Rosh Hashanah for Meiser Behema is also Rav Shimon, Rabbi Lazar and Rav Shimon. Umitziyasa Rav Meir, and in the middle is Rav Meir. It doesn't make sense to say it like that. Doesn't make sense to go from the Mishnah will read Reb Shimon, then Reb Meir, then back to Reb Shimon. Rabbi Yosef says Rebbe. The whole Mishnah is really one Tana. It's Rebbe. V'nasiv lo aliba the Tanoi, and he picked out different things according to different Tanoim. B'regalim savar like Reb Shimon. By Rosh HaShana for regalim for Balta Acher he held like Reb Shimon. Ubemaiser behema savar like Reb Meir, and then he brought in a different opinion also that it could be Rosh Chodesh Tishrei also, but he held like Reb Meir. So that's why it makes sense to go from one Tana to the next because it's really all Rebbe talking. If that's the case, then it's one Tana. Arba, the Mishnah said that there's 4 Rosh Hashanas, right? Chamisha havu, there's 5. What are the 5? We have Rosh Hashanah, Rashi speaks this out, the Rosh Hashanah for Menachem. Then Rosh Hashanah for Regalim is the second one because it's on the 15th of the month. It's when Pesach starts, right? Then we have Rosh Hashanah on Rosh Chodesh Elul for Ma'aser Behema. Then on Rosh Chodesh Tishrei for the New Year's. And then for the fruits, either on Rosh Chodesh Shvat or on Tu B'Shvat. So that's 5. That should be 5. It should be 5. Chamisha Havi. Amar Rava says, no. Arbolo Devrei HaKol. It comes out 4 according to everybody. Why? L'Rab Meir, according to Rab Meir, Arba Dal Regalim. It's 4 because you take out the one for Regalim. If you hold like Rab Meir for Ma'aser Behema, you're going to take out Regalim. Because according to Rab Meir, when do you get Baal Ta'acher? If you remember, we said in the Brisa 2 DAF ago. Rab Meir holds that you get Baal Ta'acher after 1 Regel. You don't have this whole thing of 3 Regalim in order from... So Rosh Hashanah the Regalim is taken out. So you have 1 taken off right there. So if you hold that Rosh Hashanah for Ma'aser Behema is on Rosh Chodesh Elul, you add 1 there, but you take 1 out for Regalim. So you still only have 4. Okay, that's Rava's answer. That's according to Rava, according to Meir, right? Rava, Arba, Livakot. It's 4 according to everybody. Rav Meir, Arba, Dal, Regalim. You take out Regalim. Rav Shimon, and according to Rav Shimon, who has Regalim in, Arba, Dal, Ma'aser Behema. You take out the one of Rosh Chodesh Elul, and Tishrei, and Ma'aser Behema goes with everything else in the beginning of Tishrei. So you only have 4. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says a different answer, that it shouldn't be 5. Why? What we mean in the Mishnah when we say 4 Rosh Hashanahs is Arba Chadashim. It's 4 months. Ubahen Kame Rosh Hashanah. 4 months which we have Rosh Hashanahs, and in those 4 months there are many. There are more than 1 Rosh Hashanah. Like for example, Nisan is a month with 2 Rosh Hashanahs in it, because on the 1st of Nisan and on the 15th of Nisan. Meisvei, the Gemara asks on this, or the Gemara asks on this in general, Shisha Asar B'Nisan, Rosh Hashanah La'omer. On the 16th day of Nisan, this is one that we didn't mention, is Rosh Hashanah La'omer. That means when they bring the carbon Omer, now it's the new year, you're allowed to eat the new crop. People at home are allowed to now start eating from the new produce. Right? Shisha B'Sivan, on the 6th of Sivan, which is Shavuos, Rosh Hashanah L'Shtei HaLechem. Now you're allowed to start, in the base of Mikdash, they were allowed to start bringing carbon menachos from the new crop, when they brought the Shtei HaLechem, that carbon. So we have 2 more. Rava, it's a question. According to Rava, it's a question because Rava said that Rava explained how it's 4 according to everybody, but now you have 2 more. Listen to Shisha, there should be 6 in the Mishnah. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, according to Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, that said that the 4, when we said 4 in the Mishnah, it's just 4 months with more than 1 Rosh Hashanah in there in some months. So now you have another one in Nisan. And another one, so that one doesn't add another number because it's still, there's going to be 3 in Nisan. One on the 1st of Nisan, 15th and 16th. It doesn't add. But the one in Sivan should add another one, so it should be 5. Right? The Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, let's see, Chamisha, should be 5. 5 months with which have Rosh Hashanahs in it. Amar Papa answers, Kika Chashiv, the ones we mentioned in our Mishnah, we only mentioned Midi D'Chayil Me'urta. Only things that begin the night before. Everything in our Mishnah already starts on Erev, like the Eve, right? The night before. But Midi Deloy Chayil Me'urta, things that don't start the night before, like a Chashiv. For example, these 2 examples, Omer and Shtei HaLechem, the what allows us to eat the new crop, the Chadash, is only by bringing the carbon Omer, which is in the day. It doesn't start for the night before. It's not something which is totally in the day. In the date, it's totally in the bringing of the carbon Omer, so therefore it only starts in the day of the 16th, or in the carbon Shtei HaLechem also, the day of the 6th of Sivan. Gemara asks, is that so? V'harei Regalim. One of the things we mentioned in our Mishnah, that's a Rosh Hashanah, is Regalim. We explained that it's for Baal Ta'acher. When is it counted as one of? We said you have 3 Regalim to get Baal Ta'acher. When is it considered to be the first regel for Baal Ta'acher? 3 regalim where you had the option to bring the carbon and you didn't bring it. Then you transgressed Baal Ta'acher. So let's start from the first one. The first regel is Pesach. When is it counted that you had an opportunity to bring the carbon and you didn't bring it? Only in the day, because the halacha is you can't. First of all, you don't bring karbanos at night, and second of all, you could only bring the carbon after you brought the carbon tamid shel shachar. No karbanos in the Beis Hamikdash were brought on the mizbeach before the carbon tamid shel shachar. That was always the first one, the opening carbon. Until you brought that carbon, you didn't even have the opportunity to bring your promise, the carbon that you promised. So it doesn't count for one of the 3 regalim yet until the day. So it wouldn't be counted as one of the 3 for Baal Ta'acher. So the Gemara is asking, it doesn't start from the night before, and yet we still mentioned it in our Mishnah. So why are you telling me that the carbon oimer and the carbon shtei halachem, things that it starts the new year for the crop, for that year's produce? We don't mention it because it only starts in the day and not the night before. Baal Ta'acher, which is regalim, also doesn't start till the day of and not the night before. Gemara answers, the Gebach takes out these next 2 words, kivun shetzarech. The Gemara says, li'isuyei meikara mechayev v'koi. As soon as you make a promise that you're going to bring a carbon, the chiyuv is there. So what that you didn't have the opportunity yet to bring it till the day? We don't count it from when you literally can bring the carbon. Once you make the promise and the chiyuv, you're obligated to bring this carbon, as soon as the regel begins, which is the night before, it's already counted as 1 regel for the count of 3 regalim. So the Gemara asks from a different case in our Mishnah. One of the things that we said for Rosh HaShana for Tishrei is v'harei yoivlois, yoivel. Yoivel, we said Rosh HaShana is Tishrei, right? I think we said that. Right. Yeah. Rosh Hashanah, Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah, Lashana, Shmita, Yoivlois. Right. So Yoivel, the Gemara asks, it doesn't either start the night before. Why? Because Rashi explains that Yoivel begins, that it takes effect when you blow the shofar, and you blow the shofar in the day. You blow the shofar on the day on Yom Kippur of Yoivel, and then Yoivel takes effect. So it's also something which is in the day, not the night before. So why are you saying that? Why are we mentioning that as one of the things? If we're saying that we don't mention anything that starts in the day and not the night before, this is something that starts in the day and not the night before. Yet we mentioned it. Rabbi Shmuel ben Oishel. So the Gemara answers, we're going according to Rabbi Shmuel ben Oishel, Rabbi Yochanan ben Bereika. To Amar, Rabbi Shmuel ben Oishel, Rabbi Yochanan ben Bereika. Our Mishnah is like him. To Amar, mi Rosh HaShana chayil Yovel. Yovel really begins on Rosh HaShana, and the fact that we blow the shofar on Yom Kippur, just things go into effect then, like the slaves go free and fields go back to the original owner. But really, Yovel, the Yovel year begins on Rosh Hashanah, and that begins even the night as soon as Rosh Hashanah starts, which is the night before. So that's why it makes sense that we mentioned it in our Mishnah. So this was, we just explained the answer of Rav Papa, that we only do things that we start the night before and not during the day. Rav Yochanan, where is it? Shisha. Right. Rav Shisha answers very similarly. Here, Rav Shisha, Bereder of Edi, he answers, it's similar, but it's not the exact same. We only mention things in our Mishnah that's counted as one of the Rosh Hashanahs, something which is not dependent on an action. You don't have to do anything, it just happens on its own. Things that you have to do something, then it didn't mention those. So the question was, what about oimer and shtei halachem? The oimer and shtei halachem allow eating, the carbon oimer allows you to eat the new produce by doing something. You have to bring the carbon oimer. If you don't bring the carbon oimer, it's not allowed. And shtei halachem also. The carbon shtei halachem allows to use the new produce in the Beis Hamikdash for karbanos only by bringing the carbon shtei halachem. Without that maisa, it doesn't work. So our Mishnah didn't mention anything where you have to do a maisa. Only things that happen on their own. In fact, the Gemara, same questions. V'harei regalim, we said, what does it mean that it's Rosh Hashanah for regalim? Because if you pass 3 regalim, you're over in Baal Ta'acher. So once again, the same question: when are you allowed to bring? When do you have the opportunity to bring your carbon, and you passed up that opportunity? Only after you bring the carbon tamid shel shachar on a yontif. Carbon tamid shel shachar, you need that action to bring. You're only allowed to bring your own carbon after you bring that carbon. So it's totally in a maisa. Until you bring the carbon tamid shel shachar, you don't even have the opportunity to bring your own carbon. So that should be something midi the tali b'maisa. it's dependent on the Kohanim bringing the carbon tamid ve-kachashav, and yet still we mentioned it in our Mishnah. So why are you saying that we don't mention anything in our Mishnah? We don't count anything into our Mishnah if it's totally b'maisa. So the Gemara answers no. Baal ta'achar b'meila chayil. The Isser Baal ta'achar comes on automatic. It's not totally in the Maisa. It starts right away. Automatically as soon as the Yom Tov starts. I mean, it's counted as one of the Yom Tovim for the 3 right when the Yom Tov starts. Okay, so the Gemara asks for Harei Yovel. We ask again from Yovel because it's totally in blowing shofar. Yovel doesn't take effect until you blow the shofar. So once again, the Gemara answers Rabbi Shmuel ben Aishel Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroika. Here we're on the top of Chesed Aleph now. It's Rabbi Shmuel ben Aishel Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroika, and he holds that it only takes effect on when you blow the shofar. It really starts on Rosh HaShana. The Gemara, Rav Ashi says, Arba Rosh Hashanim heim shehein ba'arba Rosh Chodashim. When we said in our Mishnah that there's 4 Rosh Hashanas, it meant that there's 4 Rosh Hashanas which are on Rosh Chodesh, which are on the first of the month. Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Rosh Chodesh Elul, Tishrei, and Shvat. Right? Those are the 4 Rosh Hashanas which are on 4 Rosh Chodeshes. That's Rav Ashi. That's why we said 4, and not all these other ones that we could have said. So the Gemara says, so therefore it's going to come out. Beis Shammai is the one who says that Rosh Hashanah Le'ilana is on the 1st of Shvat. According to Beis Hill, it's on the 15th. So why that shouldn't be counted as one of the ones that's a Rosh Hashanah because it's not on a Rosh Chodesh. So the Gemara answers Hachi Kamar Shloisha L'Divrei Yaakov and Be'echad B'Shvat Machlekes Beis Shammai Beis Hill. When we said there's 4, it meant there's 3 undisputed. And the 4th one is totally in a machlekes. Beis Shammai says the 1st of the month, but Raizel says it's on the 15th.